Welcome into NFL Daily. I am your host, Jack Sperry, and today I'm going to be breaking down my grades for all 32 NFL teams to this point in NFL free agency. Now, we know there's still going to be moves that happen. There's still going to be trades. There's still going to be good players that sign places, all right? But at this point, about a week and a half through free agency, what are the grades for each of the NFL franchises? Today, I'm going to answer that question for you guys, but before we get into it, let me know down there in the comments section who has the best fan base in the National Football League. We're going to decide that today with which NFL fan base puts their team's name down there in the comments section the most times. All right, so if you want to help your team win, put your favorite team name down there as many times as you want to try and help your team take the crown as the best fan base in the National Football League. So let's start with the AFC North here, and I'm going to start with the Baltimore Ravens at B+. Okay, now you get Derrick Henry. And you make some other nice moves here adding to this team, but you lose Geno Stone, you lose Patrick Queen, you lose some of these bigger players, Kevin Zeitler, a nice guard that you're going to be missing now. At the end of the day, I like the moves that they made. I think that they, as an overall team, got better because who's going to want to go up against Derrick Henry with Lamar Jackson pulling it, right? It's just going to be so freaking tough to stop that rushing attack from now on. But you did lose some pretty key players, and it's going to be interesting to see how they replace those players moving forward. Then with the Cleveland Browns, I'll give them a B. Like Baltimore, they did lose some relatively key players, but they are bringing back L'Jarius Sneed to pair with Myles Garrett once again in 2024. That's a really big one right there. Joe Flacco ended up leaving for Indianapolis, but you bring in Jameis Winston. So overall, I think that the Browns are in a pretty decent spot. I'm not sure if they made a huge step forward or anything like that, but I think they made some nice moves to definitely keep them in the playoff conversation. And if Deshaun Watson returns the Deshaun Watson form that we knew him from before COVID, before his suspension, I mean, this could be a Super Bowl caliber team if we're looking at Deshaun Watson, the MVP candidate here. Then with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'll give them an A-, and the only reason why it's not a full-blown A is because they still have a need at receiver, they still have a need at offensive tackle, they still haven't addressed some of those needs, but the way that they have addressed their other needs at quarterback, at inside linebacker, all these different spots, they've done a really good job of that to this point. I think both of their quarterback moves have been excellent. You get arguably the best value contract in NFL history with Russell Wilson at the vet minimum, and you trade for a really high upside, young, dynamic quarterback threat as a backup in Justin Fields for a conditional 6th-round pick. You also bring in Patrick Queen, and you get a nice corner in Dante Jackson in the Deontay Johnson trade. So overall, I'll give him an A- here because I think the Steelers are getting a lot better. Then we got a B for the Cincinnati Bengals. You bring in Geno Stone, bring in some nice players. Zach Moss as a running back to replace Joe Mixon. I like the Mike Gesicki signing as well, but you're losing DJ Reader, one of the best interior pass rushers in football, and you lost Chidobe Awuzie to the Tennessee Titans. So you're missing two very key defensive players. This is all before a potential T. Higgins trade, right? So I'll give them a B for right now. I think they got maybe a little bit better, but definitely not worlds better. Then we'll go to Buffalo here with a B-. Obviously, they had to unload a bunch of their starting players before free agency even started, but they also brought back a lot of their free agents that were hitting the market. They restructured Von Miller. They still have Stephon Diggs on the roster for now. So listen, this is one of those teams that I think, they brought back the players that they wanted and all the guys that they thought were on the decline. They let them go or they cut them. So listen, they definitely need to address some of those needs on their roster still. But at the end of the day, I do like some of the moves that they've made, so I'll give them a B-. Miami really did kind of a Houdini act here during free agency. They were in cap hell, and then they restructured a bunch of contracts, and then poof, you're able to sign Kendall Fuller, and you're able to bring in Aaron Brewer, their new center, right? They're able to make some of these signings that are really going to make an impact for them as they attempt to try to win a Lombardi trophy before a potential extension on Tua's contract kicks in, right? So this is definitely a do-or-die year for the Miami Dolphins. You can tell that that's their approach here with the amount of signings that they have made. And overall, I like the signings that they've made. I think they've really put themselves in a good position moving forward. The New York Jets, I'll give them a B+. Overall, I like the C.J. Mosley signing. I like the moves on the offensive line, bringing Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith to protect Aaron Rodgers. That's got to be priority number one. They also signed Mike Williams to put on the other side of Garrett Wilson. So it really seems like they're prioritizing the offensive side of the ball. This is another team that's going all in on 2024 with Aaron Rodgers approaching retirement, and you can tell that that's their approach at this point. Then with the New England Patriots, I'll give them a B. I like Jacoby Brissett as a bridge quarterback. I like that they brought back Michael Onwenu. These moves are good, right? But at the end of the day, for a team that's really starting to lose talent, like you lost Jalen Mills, you lost Trent Brown, you lost Devontae Parker, you lost some pretty key pieces to the starting lineup last year. I'm not sure how much better they got. I think they got a little bit better, but I still think they're probably overall one of the worst rosters in the National Football League. So let me know down there in the comments section which NFL team has had the best free agency to this point. For today's pinned comment, YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Houston Texans, I think, have been the winners of free agency to this point, adding Danielle Hunter. They made a lot of moves this year that are really going to help out C.J. Stroud, bringing in Joe Mixon, Noah Brown. I mean, I really Jeff Okudah. I mean, they made a lot of really good moves and bringing in players that are good fits for what they like to do offensively and defensively. Upgrading from Jonathan Grenard to Danielle Hunter is really going to help out. So I really do think Houston is going to really try to take advantage of all the cap space that they have to use now that C.J. Stroud is under contract control for the next 4 seasons. Looks like they're going to try to make a push with Stroud still on his rookie contract, and that has started now, and I think they did an excellent job. And then we go to Jacksonville, give them a B-. I like some of the signings that they have made. I like that they brought in Eric Armstead. And I like Gabe Davis as a number 2 receiver, but they were not able to secure their number 1 receiver, Calvin Ridley, who ended up going to the rival Titans. We'll get to that in a second. But overall, you're going into the draft needing a number 1 receiver, and that's never a good place to be. Then we go to the Colts. I'll give them a B. You're bringing in Joe Flacco to back up Anthony Richardson in case, God forbid, something happens to him again. You brought back a lot of key players like Michael Pittman Jr. and Kenny Moore. I really do think that Indianapolis, maybe they didn't get a whole lot better, but they retained a lot of their talent, which is going to be very, very important for them heading into a big season for them in 2024. Then with the Titans, this might surprise some people because of the amount of players that they signed, but honestly, I think they probably overpaid for quite a bit of the players that they ended up signing for this free agency period, especially Calvin Ridley. And even though Ridley gives you a pretty scary outside receiver duo in him and DeAndre Hopkins, paying him as much as they're paying him, I don't know if Calvin Ridley was worth that kind of contract. So I think they might have overspent. They're definitely bringing in players, but I'm not sure how much better this team overall is because they also let a lot of good players walk out the door. So I'll give them a C+ here because I think it might be a little bit overrated, if I'm being completely honest with you. Then we'll go to Kansas City with a B. Didn't make a whole lot of big signings. They brought back Chris Jones, but at the end of the day, man, they're the Super Bowl champs. They didn't have to make a whole lot of big moves, and the one move that they did make, bringing in Hollywood Brown, giving Patrick Mahomes another weapon that can beat you down the field, that's going to really help things out for Andy Reid and Mahomes and the champs. Then we get to Las Vegas, and, I have mixed feelings about the Raiders because I love the Christian Wilkins signing, and I hated the Gardner Minshew signing, man. The Raiders are definitely in a point right now that they need to go out and get a quarterback in the draft, in my opinion. Watch out for Michael Penix Jr., by the way, in the first round. And overall, I thought that they got a little bit better, but overall, they're still the same Raiders roster. They still need to get a lot better in a lot of areas. Denver, I'll give them an F because plain and simply, you're paying $38 million to a guy that's going to be playing for another team. I mean, that's just terrible cap management. I thought Russell Wilson actually had a pretty decent season last year, and if you didn't completely sever your relationship with him with the way they handled his situation last year, maybe he's your starting quarterback this year, and you can actually pay him to be on your team. But instead, he's elsewhere. You're locked in with that money, and you didn't really make a whole lot of big splash signings this year because of that. I'm giving them an F. Then we'll go to Chargers. I'll give them a C. You lose Mike Williams. You lose Keenan Allen, 2 of the best receivers that you had on the team. But you are able to retain Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, 2 really good edge rushers. So you have to address wide receiver in the draft now. That's absolutely apparent to me. But it's definitely apparent to me, at least, that Jim Harbaugh is in charge here, and he's in full rebuild mode. So now coming up, we're going to be on to the NFC. All 4 of the NFC divisions I'll give grades for. But before we get into that, check out our friends at Fanatics. Go to chatsports.com/NFL hats, where they got a great selection of different ball caps for all 32 NFL teams. A bunch of, if you like flat bills, if you like curved bills, if you like a bunch of crazy designs, they got everything for you there on the Fanatics website. All you have to do is go to chatsports.com/NFL hats to get a great deal on a hat for your favorite NFL team today. Then we get to Detroit. I'll give them an A-. I like bringing in Carlton Davis in a trade. I like the Kevin Zeitler signing to replace Jonah Jackson. They made some moves that I really like. DJ Reader is another good one. This team got better on the defensive side of the ball, all right? And they secured the offensive line once again. So I think that this team made the moves necessary to take that next step, and now it's up to Jared Goff, Ben Johnson, and Dan Campbell and this defense to really finish the job this time and bring home the first Lombardi trophy in Detroit Lions history. B+ for Green Bay. I thought they got better in some areas. They upgraded at running back with Josh Jacobs. They're bringing in Xavier McKinney to be a nice safety. They're bringing back Nixon and Ballantyne, two secondary pieces that they like quite a bit. So I like the moves that Green Bay has made. Maybe nothing like super stellar, like they got way better as a roster, but overall, some really good moves for Green Bay, and I like what they did. And then Minnesota, I'm giving them a C-. I like some of the moves they made. Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman, even Shaq Griffin I like a little bit, but all those guys, combined don't make up for the loss of Kirk Cousins, who not only was fantastic in your offense last year with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson, but also you have to pay him $28.5 million against your cap anyways. So you bring in Sam Darnold, clear downgrade, and I'm a Sam Darnold guy. I think that he's a good backup and a spot starter, good bridge guy. But is he going to make up for Kirk Cousins and what he was able to do for your team last year? No way, man. No way. So I'll give it a C-. And honestly, it's teetering on D+ at this point because of the move to not retain Kirk Cousins. Then Chicago, B+. Only reason why it's not an A is because of how bad the Justin Fields trade is for their side of things. But, I guess that wasn't completely in Chicago's control. It was the market not wanting Fields. But, man, you get Keenan Allen for a 4th-round pick. That's a move that I really like. You bring in Kevin Byard and DeAndre Swift, and you get some very nice pieces to make this roster better. And with Caleb Williams, one of the most talented quarterback prospects to ever enter the league, coming into this very nice situation with a head coach already in place, a new offensive coordinator that knows what he's doing in Shane Waldron, the Chicago Bears team is definitely looking up heading into 2024. Then in the NFC East, Dallas, I'm giving them an F because they told us they were going all in. Instead, all that they've done is sign Eric Kendricks and Jordan Lewis. And Eric Kendricks is a bad player. He's lost his legs. He's absolutely cooked. He's not going to be good for the Cowboys next year. And Jordan Lewis is a fine nickel corner. That's it. And they've lost a lot of players. They've lost Dorrance Armstrong. They've lost Dante Fowler. They've lost Leighton Vander Esch now. They've lost a lot of players here, and Stephon Gilmore looks like he's not coming back, plus Tyron Smith. So this roster is inarguably worse right now. And for a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl right now because, Mike McCarthy and all these different things and Dak Prescott, this team got worse. All right, so if you didn't win it last year, how can you expect to win it this year? Philly, I'll give them an A-, bringing in Barkley, bringing in Bryce Huff as a new outside linebacker. Really like the moves Philadelphia made. They got better, as they always do under GM Howie Roseman, it seems like. And once again, I expect Philly to be a damn good football team. New York, I'll give them a D+, and maybe that's a little bit too low because I do like some of the signings that they made. The trade for Brian Burns was really good for the New York Giants, so maybe that trade alone brings that up to a C or a C-. But, at the end of the day, the signings that they made, it's like Joe Runyon and Jermaine Illuminor to fix the offensive line, Devin Duvernay or Devin Singletary to replace Saquon Barkley. It's like they definitely downgraded in some of these areas, man. And, at the end of the day, I still think New York has quite a bit to go, especially at wide receiver, quarterback, all these different places to really become a true contender in the NFC. Then Washington was very busy. Over 22 signings to this point, but none of them were really like super splash signings other than Bobby Wagner, and he's an inside linebacker. You could have really had a great edge rusher. I wanted them to go after Danielle Hunter. They also traded away Sam Howell and brought in Marcus Mariota, a terrible decision, in my opinion. Howell is not only better than Mariota, but he is significantly cheaper. I don't understand that move other than to move up a couple, for a couple pick swaps here, which is fine. But, at the end of the day, it seems like Seattle really likes Sam Howell as a backup option to Geno Smith. Now, we got a couple more divisions here to go after. But before we get into that, like the video if you're having a good time here on NFL Daily. Let's go into NFC South here with Tampa Bay. I'll give them a B+, because I like some of the signings that they ended up making here. I like that, especially the re-signings, bringing back Baker, bringing back Mike Evans, right? I really do think, and also bringing in Jordan Whitehead, a good safety, that's going to help out their defense quite a bit as well. So I think they're bringing the team back together, bringing the boys back together for another run And I do think that they're going to be they're going to be just as good, if not better, next year, and they're going to be right in the thick of things in the NFC South once again next year. Then we go to Atlanta with an A. They got their guy quarterback, plain and simply. Will it work out? We'll see. But they got their guy, and because of that, they get an A. They also give him Darnell Mooney as a nice secondary weapon to Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Also get Rondale Moore, a good screen receiver and special teams player. So at the end of the day, I like the moves that the Falcons have made. So New Orleans, not a whole lot of splash signings here. Chase Young is getting neck surgery, which was kind of their one splash signing this offseason. So much for that. And, the Saints are kind of a boring team this offseason, at least in my opinion. And, the way that they've handled free agency kind of shows that. In Carolina, B-. They made they signed a lot of players to a lot of money. They spent over $150 million on interior offensive linemen. Way too much money, man. And, because of that poor money management, at least in my opinion, I get that you're trying to protect Bryce Young, but I got to give them a B-. They got better, but not significantly better, and they overpaid at certain positions. Then we get to the NFC West. I'll give a C- to San Francisco. They lost Eric Armstead, which was really the biggest move of the offseason for them to this point. Yeah, you bring in Leonard Floyd and, a couple other players here defensively, but that's not going to replace Chase Young and Eric Armstead, especially what they did down the stretch for that football team. Still got Nick Bosa, still arguably the best team in the NFC, but overall in terms of just free agency, wasn't overall that good for San Francisco. Then a team that had a quietly good free agency period was the Los Angeles Rams, who I give an A- to. You get Kobe Parkinson, you bring in Cam Curl. You brought in some very nice pieces here. If you are the Los Angeles Rams, you locked up Kevin Dotson for the foreseeable future, which is something that I think was a very good move for them. And they bring in Jonah Jackson, so they're going to be able to protect Matthew Stafford. They're bringing in some nice players. And then Darius Robinson, their cornerback, really good player on the outside for them before he moved to Jacksonville. He had his best years of his career here in L.A. They're bringing him back as well, so I like the trajectory that the Rams are on. And they might not have had the most money to spend in free agency, but they were very smart in how they used it this period. Then we'll go B- for Seattle. I think they had some missed opportunities. Could have got Patrick Queen, but decided not to. They ended up getting some different guys here. Jerome Baker, and then also Terrell Dodson, formerly with the Bills. Two signings that I really like. So they got better. They bring in Sam Howell, which I think is a good plan B to Geno Smith in case he doesn't work out in 2024. So maybe I have it a little bit low here. Maybe it's a B, but on screen here I got it as a B-. Then Arizona, this is a team that we're expecting to take a leap in year two after a competitive year one under Jonathan Gannon. Lots of close losses, lots of teams that they played really closely that they should have been blown out in given the talent on their roster. And, honestly, they didn't get a whole lot better in terms of their roster in free agency. They made some signings, brought in Sean Murphy Bunting, but, nothing super flashy, nothing that's going to significantly get them better heading into 2024. It looks to me like Arizona is prioritizing the draft at this point in their process. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Who's the most intriguing NFL team heading into the 2024 season right now? For me personally, I'm going to say the Pittsburgh Steelers because you got two quarterbacks that are very intriguing. Russell Wilson, somebody that's a former Super Bowl champion, somebody that had a better passer rating than Patrick Mahomes last year, but people kind of see as like not very good, as washed, whatever, on a one-year prove-it deal there in Pittsburgh. A good head coach, a good defense, a good roster. If Russ can't make it work there, he's not going to make it work anywhere. And then right behind him, right on his coattails, is Justin Fields, a super talented, dynamic backup option in case Russell Wilson stinks. So I think no matter what happens there in Pittsburgh this upcoming season, it's going to be very fascinating, and that's the team I can't wait to watch in 2024. So that's going to be it for today's show, guys. I appreciate you sticking with me here to the very end. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already for the latest NFL news and rumors content all throughout the 2024 offseason.